You know what? Let's go back to the mental health conversation.
Let's do it.
The first time I had grand plans of building a brand and it sort of, taking off and doing all the things and having all the all the things that people think when they start a brand. And I don't think anything that's bad. It was also not me in so many ways. I was hustling in a way that I didn't really want to be, and I think this time I'm doing this for me. Welcome to A Theology of Hustle. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, and follow me at Theology of Hustle on Instagram. Now, let's get to work. Welcome to A Theology of Hustle. It's been a while since I've said that. That felt very weird. Very weird indeed.
So it's been a minute.
It has been a minute. Going on a little over 3 years now since I put out anything on Theology of Hustle.
So you're back.
I'm back, apparently.
I'm excited.
I made it a social media official, so it feels like now I have to.
So what brings you back?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I miss it, I think, is the biggest part.
I miss it too.
You miss it too. You've told me that.
We joke a lot that the podcast is really for me. It's wild the times that interviews were like what I needed to hear. And so just, but listeners don't know. I have missed the podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I hope there's like maybe one or two other people that have as well. Maybe.
My mom and my aunt.
Okay,
they're solidly
good.
with me.
Okay, we're good. That's all we need. But I just missed doing the podcast. A lot's changed in the last 3.5 years. The reason I, stopped doing the podcast is because a lot was going on in life and it just wasn't a good time for so many reasons. And, it felt like I was finally maybe at the point where I had capacity to kind of jump back in, and I missed having some, creative outlet. I missed having, kind of a deadline and a reason to, push myself and, talk to interesting people. And, I kind of missed the whole thing in some ways. So we're back. I always had like left Theology of Hustle kind of out there, just nebulous, thinking I might go back at some point. And it feels like a good time. Maybe not during summer wasn't the ideal time, but it's fine. It is what it is. The kids are doing great. We're all fine. We're all fine. So, yeah.
So it's been 3 years.
Yeah.
From when you were last recording Theology of Hustle,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of life has changed.
Yeah.
To the degree you want to share.
Yeah.
Like, what has that looked like for you?
That was a very therapist thing of you to say there.
I am a therapist.
Yes. So, everything except our family has changed in the last like 3.5 years, moved across the country, started a new job, found new community, new church, new house, new everything except the 5 of us, basically. Right. Yeah. I did not realize how hard that change was going to be, both for us as a family and for me personally. In that time, I also turned 40, which is bit of a...
I forgot.
Yeah, we did that together.
We did do that.
But it feels like forever ago now. But turning 40 in a new place, while in the process of building community, while still learning a new job and not knowing where I kind of fit in work, all felt very overwhelming and did not feel like I had capacity for creative stuff. I probably should have been doing more creative stuff than I did, but I didn't feel like I had capacity. I was just kind of making it there for a while.
Yeah.
So.
And also think, some self-compassion around, was there space really? I don't know.
I agree. I wonder how much just not having a creative outlet made things a little bit harder, that I didn't feel like I could you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you do what you do, right? You do what you have capacity for. Maybe that's, I don't know. In some ways, I feel like I'm learning a theology of hustle in real time in some ways. Like the things that I've learned over the last 3 years, feed directly into the podcast. Like I had always worked. I had always been bivocational, but now I'm like in a corporate job doing that corporate life. Starting from the ground up really in a new industry in corporate, and maybe living out a lot of the practicing what I preach,
Yeah.
maybe in some
100%.
ways. Yeah. Yeah. So that has changed things significantly. And so all that said, I feel like I'm coming to the podcast with fresh eyes and fresh ideas and people that I really want to talk to as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, new community is such a significant part of where we are here. So our friends here don't know Theology of Hustle.
It is so weird. So previously, I think most people know this, but we lived in a community where we had been since our early 20s, mid 20s, right? So we had already been married, but like we had hit all those major life milestones in a community. We had, all 3 of our children in a community, and people were intimately aware of kind of how all that happened. They supported us, they were with us, and then we have found a new church, a new community, and there's not that shared experience. And it's weird thinking about how you can feel known in a new place, but like I guess in the span of community, a couple of years of being a community is like nothing.
Right.
Really. I think you can feel known and you can feel loved for sure. And community is just such a slow process. Yeah. And it's way slower than you want it to be, I feel like.
Yes.
And so all like in our new space with new friends, there's so much unpacking of the things that our friends up in Illinois just knew about us, right?
Because they were living it with us.
They were there.
They were sitting around our table discussing it.
Very much so.
So when you think about sharing this part of your life and passion with our new community or anyone who's found your podcast, what is A Theology of Hustle to you, and what's the purpose behind the podcast?
That's a great question. I feel like it has morphed so much over the years, and maybe people didn't see my thinking changed over the time. But really my thinking it's shifted a lot of the way I approach life and the way I think about life holistically. Like Sabbath is intertwined intimately with all this and has become the focus of a lot of episodes. And I guess I approached this podcast because I was really interested in exploring work. It's something we all do. And I feel like as pastors, a lot of times, all we see is the church and people at the church and doing ministry in church settings at a church building. And I wanted to explore how people did ministry in their everyday lives. And I think by that, I meant kind of show the gospel with their lives, which is very much a part of this. And as I started exploring the concepts of a theology of work and of how we work, it exploded what I thought about work and the importance of work. And you actually see work as this thread that runs from the Garden of Eden, from creation through new creation. And it's this thread that you see weave throughout the narrative of Scripture, and yet for so many people, work is something hated.
Yeah.
Like it's something we dread doing. It's a burden, and that's fair. I've been there, I understand that. And I think what God is teaching us through our work about his kingdom is like the most important part of all of that. And so he puts us in these situations in work settings. He And I don't even mean like the stuff we get paid for. I mean, the things that we put our hands to, that God has called us to do in this world. He's crafting something out of us. He's working on us, as we work. And so I just think this idea of work has just expanded so much in my mind. And you see all these different ways it plays out in people's lives. And there's just a lot to explore, I think, in this area, you know? So I don't know. The podcast changed me in so many ways.
Yeah.
As I got to hear from voices that you wouldn't normally hear from, as I got to kind of really dig in to some of these like questions that I had that I wasn't able to explore before, with other people and other stories. Gosh, story is such a important part of who we are and what we do. And so to explore story after story and see how God never leaves a story the same. You know what I mean? It's God's using that story to unpack amazing things. I missed it, obviously, as I kind of unpack that. But the theology of hustle is exploring what God wants to do in each and every one of us, in our everyday lives, in the mundane. Yeah.
I love that. And it's such a beautiful articulation. I feel like I am aware of that transition because, we live together and do life together. And I also agree, leaving ministry and moving into a corporate space has shifted even how you see work. And I think what a delight that we get the podcast in a new iteration where you have new eyes and new experience to share story. Like that, to me, that's the beauty. Shocking. Therapist JJ loves a good story. Yeah, and I just think elevating voices in such diverse spaces is amazing. And I have learned so much about even jobs that exist based on the podcast. And so I'm excited about what's to come.
Yeah, something I really want to focus on, I think, this time. I guess it's really easy to go out and, I'm connected with all these publishers, and it's easy to find books like this and you kind of explore this. But I guess in this conversation, it's really easy to find people who really love their work and their work is deeply meaningful to them. Started nonprofits and, story after story of these beautiful things to which God has called us. And yet so many Christians out there, that's not their story of work, right? And so the thing that consumes them most of the time is maybe not something that meets a lot of needs per se. I'm in that role now where like my corporate job is amazing and does so many great things, and it can't meet certain needs that were met by ministry back in the day. Right.
Yeah. And
those stories are really hard to find. Like, finding people to come on the podcast and be like, man, I just dread Monday, like I'm not looking forward to Monday, and exploring that and how we move past that, or not how we move past that, how we live in that. You know what I mean? It's not something to be kind of like shed, but something to be explored. And like, what are the ways that you are making meaning, even in that? And how do I help other people who maybe are struggling with that make meaning? Even if work doesn't feel like that main mode of meaning. I think I realized how much identity I had locked up into being a pastor. My work made a lot of my identity, right? And now that I am out of that work to some extent, I can't quit ministry, it's always in there. But now that the bulk of my work is in a corporate setting, I realized how much my identity was tied to that thing that I did. And so through some therapy, and through some explorations of things, even this, like relaunching this podcast is an iteration of that, like feeling like, I need to find meaning in other places and put work where it belongs, not as my identity, but as this, aspect of what God is maybe teaching me in this season. So I want to explore that. I don't want it to seem like, hey, if you struggle at your job, like you're doing something wrong, or like, God, just be more of a Christian or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know how to do that, but I'm looking forward to the challenge of bringing in some of those conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear those conversations.
We'll see. I'm excited to talk to people about that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, I've asked before.
Yeah.
There's lots of cool people in the world.
Yeah.
Like, is there someone that you're like, I'm relaunching and my eyes are set on?
We're going after them. Yeah, I don't know. There are so many interesting people that I follow that I'd be interested in. I mean, I think Lecrae always comes up as like,
that's who I was thinking in my head.
Yeah, he's doing his own podcast too now, and like, it's super cool, and I'm super jealous of it. And he's amazing. I still would love to interview Lecrae for sure. But there are all these people that I now know and am aware of that, I have some treats lined up for people, just ideas of people who I want to go after, who I know well enough that I can go after. And I think there's some really powerful stories out there. Part of the issue is like that. You always go to celebrities with something like that. Somebody that like everybody else has heard from, right? Like, oh, this is this celebrity and they have been on 10,000 podcasts, and I'm probably going to have them on, and we're going to ask mostly the same questions. You know what I mean? And I that's great. If you know celebrities that want to come on my podcast, I'm happy to have them. And the Theology of Hustle really is about everyday people. And the more I can bring on people who don't necessarily have platforms, like, all the better in some ways. Is that?
I'm like laughing. I mean, I'm like, how much of my giggling is caught on these microphones? Because there is so much that to me feels on brand for you. Like, of course, Lecrae would be amazing.
Yeah.
And also, you find people whose stories may not have that like star-studded presence, and yet their story has such value. And so I'm excited. You joke like when you preach about like, oh, Deuteronomy, and your obscure
the nerdery of it all.
Yes. The passages that you choose. And I think the podcast can be a reflection of that, of you are looking for things that maybe other people aren't. And I think you do a really great job of creating space for all people to share their story and I think in giving people that opportunity, it's honoring their experience. And so I'm excited. Yeah.
I think we'll come up with some pretty good interviews. There's something about just having an hour to just sit down and explore somebody's life and pick their brains about all the nerdy stuff that I've wanted to pick their brains about, and really like step through that story with them. And so many people, especially that like don't have platforms in the past, have been really nervous to come on the podcast because they're like, what do I know about theology? Right? They're not coming from a theological background. And my what I always told them is like, tell your story and I'll handle the theology, right? Like we'll get there together, because I think people don't realize how much they really know about theology, because it's practical and it's built into everyday life. And it's the reason that they do what they do. They just don't call that theology. Theology is this like ivory tower, like something that, only people with like lots of degrees do. And that's just not theology. I don't think. Theology is understanding God, and the way that we understand our God, yes, is through these doctrinal statements and reading of fancy people's books. And we tend to neglect in that, like the everyday, like lived theology, like the way that God's hand plays out into kind of everything that we do. I guess I'm getting a little woo woo here, but theology should be practical. Yes. It should be every day. It should be the things that we breathe, and not because we're like theologizing or it doesn't even have to be necessarily talking about God per se, but the way we kind of like live out our lives is theology kind of in practice. And that's what I want to help people see. So even people that I interview, I feel like I can help them see that theology is so much more than what they think it is.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's something you're really good at.
I appreciate that. What would you like to see from the podcast? I get to flip the tables. I mean, what are you excited about?
I love story. I also, am privy to some of the people
Yeah, that's fair.
who are going to be on the podcast soon. And I think the richness of our community, and I think the longer we are humans and the more interesting people we meet, this network has just kind of grown.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm looking forward to a lot of stories. And even with some of the people that we know that you want to have on, there is depth to those stories that I don't yet know.
Right.
And I am looking forward to the way that you ask thoughtful questions, that I will know more of those stories based on your interviews.
Yeah. I think I'm excited about that too. To explore more of that. I think as I kind of think through even what we do, like I can't help but like the heartbeat of what like our ministry like comes out in the podcast. Like I think every 6th or 8th episode features somebody who is in the adoption and foster care world. Right.
Yeah.
And I like don't plan on that ceasing, right? It's just going to be something that I keep exploring over and over and over again. Because we know a lot of people in that world, and it's just such a heartbeat of what we do, who we are, right? So I can't quite help that. I will be interviewing more people about Sabbath. I will guarantee you that, because I want to learn more about Sabbathing well, and I think we still Sabbath, and that's an important part of what we do. And I don't know that we always do it as faithfully as we could, it's not always as focused as I want it to be, or, I want to explore what God has for us there. So there's lots of great stories, but there's these themes, these threads that kind of keep coming back, that I can't quite help myself.
Right.
With,
and I think that's the beauty of the work of, yes, there are core parts of who we are and how we operate. And that is a thread that runs through, while also this expansion of what work is and what that looks like. Yeah,
for sure. So there's lots there. And the cool part about A Theology of Hustle, I've always said, is that like literally anybody could come on this podcast. Yeah. We all have a story, and that's all we're doing is exploring a story. So it doesn't matter what your platform is, how many followers you have on Instagram. Like I struggle with all that stuff anyway. Like in order to kind of have a platform, you got to build a platform and do these certain things. And, the world kind of wants certain things from us, even to have like a voice. And I don't want Theology of Hustle to be a place where you have to have done specific things to have a voice. Like we all have a voice, Yeah. So there's lots there, I think.
So can I ask a maybe more probing question? Yeah. I think even just sitting here having this conversation with you, there is this radiance of health that
I'm radiating health.
You are radiating.
Am I glowing?
I think it's these fancy lights that you have in your office. But I just, and I think it's because we have been together walking these, last 3.5 years, that health hasn't been as present for either of us. And, we've done the work, and I'm wondering, like, would you be willing to talk about some of the work that you have done to kind of move through all this stuff to get to this place that you are back to, like, joyful and excited and passionate about podcasting?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I should say another thread that kind of runs throughout a lot of the podcast is mental health.
Yeah.
I can't help that. It's very annoying. JJ keeps talking about mental health all the time. These therapists, sheesh, but you look back and some of the like most powerful interviews that I've done have been, therapists that are exploring different aspects of mental health. And, we do that through, your business and another podcast, we just can't kind of help ourselves. But so mental health, I guess I should say that it's not, I don't see this as just a me journey. It's an us journey.
Yeah.
Right. So since we've moved, all 5 of us have been in therapy at certain points, yes. Right? On and off, some of us multiple times, I think the mental health and exploring some of those difficulties that I was having was an important part of this journey. Like I going back to that identity point, there was a lot wrapped up in that. And when we moved, I knew it was going to be hard.
Yeah.
And I knew it was going to be hard. I knew it was going to be hard to not have our community. We had a community in Illinois at Life Church that was just the best. It was hard to leave them. We knew it was what we needed, and we knew that's what God was calling us to. Really hard to leave something good though, and knowing it's going to be a long process to find something like that again. Those churches like that are few and far between. And, you move down to Texas. So when we moved, I didn't feel like I was not denominational, am not denominational. So it wasn't like I had a network of churches to reach out to. And I just knew kind of coming down to Texas, I just felt like ministry was going to be difficult, more difficult than I wanted it to be. I just knew I was going to get in with a bunch of like crazy white nationalists or something and not know it, and be like at a just an insane church. Like you can't know a church culture until you've just been
there. Absolutely.
And it's very fraught just to kind of go down and hope to find something that fits. Cause it's not just me, as a pastor, it's not just me kind of, this is my job. Like now in a corporate job, it's just me. Like y'all aren't really affected by my job, besides like,
no, I would say we affect you.
Yeah.
You can't do your job because you work from home, and the children and I can be distracting.
That's fair. I'm not going to put that on you, but
I'll put that on me.
Okay. But when you're a pastor, everybody's in. Everybody's all in. The whole family doesn't really have a choice. That's the church you're going into. That's the community you belong to. Yeah. I just didn't feel like it was something I was willing to do, put our family through who knows what, So that's the reason for kind of stepping out of ministry for that season. And then, God really blessed me with a random job at a startup that I probably didn't really deserve, or did not have the skills necessarily. Like they took a chance on me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. They took a chance on me, and it was moving and settling in here was so much harder than I could have imagined. That was the loneliest I think I've ever been, and we still had us.
Yeah.
We still had, the 5 of us. And I was so lonely. I was so dejected. It was so hard for much longer than I had ever dreamed, and because of the struggles, because some of those persistent sort of like down days just weren't kind of letting up like I wanted them to, or how they did in the past, maybe. I just felt like it was time to, seek mental health, right? I mean, if I was struggling with an affliction in my body, I would seek a doctor, and I was struggling with something in my brain, so I sought a brain person, but really emotions. I needed somebody to kind of help me walk through some really hard emotions, some things I was struggling with. And so we unpacked a lot of like, identity stuff for me, but also just like, I don't know, there's a feeling like I turned 40, I'm starting over at a new job. Like, you get all these thoughts of like, have I wasted my entire career? Like, what have I been doing with my life? And, I didn't end up buying a sports car or anything, so that's good. I guess I haven't had a true midlife crisis or something.
We bought a Suburban instead.
Yes.
Nothing says I'm a 40-year-old man like.
Could be worse.
A giant kid
could be,
cart.
Yeah, could be worse. But we did. Yes, we did. You have to fit it in Texas. You know,
Right.
You need something big to drive around in. But yeah, the therapy was a incredible experience. It was a long, fraught experience. It was the thing about emotions, and we've talked about this, is that they're dumb. Like, I don't think I think I'm speaking for many people when I say that. Okay. Emotions are just so inefficient. Like, I could be getting so many things done instead of feeling emotions, right? I could be doing anything else. And emotions are not, there's not fast. Like, they take time, and it feels like slogging through them and trying to figure out. And the thing about emotions is they're trying to tell you something, right? They're trying to tell you maybe something's off, or like, maybe there's something you need to explore here. And it is really hard to stop and just be, emotions want you to be. And I like doing, and emotions are not good for that. So I would say I'm still in that process in a lot of ways. I'm not actively in therapy now, but I'm still in that process of exploring what those things mean. And I may go back, or I may try spiritual direction again for a while, or who knows, what the next step will be. But that was being with a licensed therapist in a therapeutic session was I'd say a life-changing equipping of some new tools that I now have to explore some of these struggles that I'd been having, insecurities, right? And now I know how to kind of experience those things and not just push them to the side, but kind of explore them. And so it's an important journey of health that I think everybody should go on at some time. And if you're in a major life transition, it's a great time to see a therapist, right, JJ? Is that your thing? Yeah.
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
I do think it is important, but I do think even, right, you have been an advocate for therapy and mental health for as long as I have had a career. And I think it's really different to say, like, hey, everyone should go to therapy.
Yep.
It is very different to say, I've been to therapy and this is what I learned. And so I just think I don't know, I'm just excited because you are a fuller, healthier person with more lived. I mean, I just think what we all learned in that transition time, that really long season of grief, rebuilding as a family, you have different experiences, some that I'm like, I wish we could have learned this a different way, and just how that shapes how you interview and how you show up and hold space for people. Yeah.
There's this quote that we go back to a lot, Dr. Karen Purvis, I believe, which is that you can't take someone somewhere you have not been yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think people should think about that. Whether you're in pastoral ministry or you just minister to people in your everyday life, whether you're in church and how you interact in church, if you have not gone on the journey to health yourself personally, you're never going to be able to take somebody else there. If you have not gone on the journey of discipleship, of following the leader, like, you just cannot take somebody else there. So I'm hoping in this round of ministry, I now am a pastor again. I don't know that we actually said that, but in this round of ministry and in this round of podcasting, I think I'm able to take people places that I have not been able to before.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think that's part of the journey, right? This is my story in so many ways. This is our story. And hopefully we're continually growing in that work, continually getting better and able to take people new places all the time. Yeah.
So, I'm very practical.
Yes.
That's what people say
all
about me.
Yep.
That JJ's super practical. Just curious, like, for people who hear that you're back to podcasting, like, what is that going to look like? What is your cadence? Yeah. When will these episodes be dropping?
When are you going to let me know all the answers to all those questions? Honestly, I have no idea what this looks like. I do have several interviews already in the hopper. I've been hustling, y'all. I've been hustling, getting this back on, going, introducing YouTube now. So now you can catch us on YouTube if you really like seeing me talk to people on a camera. That's a new experience. The refresh is taking a little bit of time. So the goal is going to be bi-weekly. I think there will be times where I'll be closer to weekly just to get through all the people that I'm talking to. So it's not going to be as consistent as it was. I'm doing other things. And I have some pretty great stories, and there's lots of stories to tell. So I think we're just going to kind of feel this out, and I'm not trying to, I don't know. You know what? Let's go back to the mental health conversation.
Let's do it.
The first time I had grand plans of building a brand, and it sort of, taking off and doing all the things and having all the speaking, all the things that people think when they start a brand. And I don't think anything that's bad. It was also not me in so many ways. I was hustling in a way that I didn't really want to be, And I think this time I'm doing this for me.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this. I'm doing this. Hopefully people will listen.
And me. I need your podcast.
Yes. Well, I agree. But the day-to-day of it, I'm doing for me because I want to explore these things, not because I'm looking to build something else or like turn this into something else or whatever. The goal isn't to have this appease that part of me that needs affirmation. Do you know what part I'm talking about?
Maybe I do.
That evil Enneagram 3 part of me that just needs to be told I'm loved constantly. I'm not doing this podcast for that this time. I hope I'm putting out really good content. I'm hoping I do a really good job. I hope I'm telling some amazing stories. And if you and your mom and your aunt are the only people that listen, you know what? I love that. And it's not going to stress me out, right? This is a project for me. It's an outlet for me. It's something I want to explore and learn and grow. And if y'all come along with me and you have fun, then that's great, but this doesn't have to be my end all be all. This doesn't have to meet all my emotional needs.
Okay.
And I think there was a part of it that was that last time. And hopefully I've moved into a healthier place where this can just be what it is. And we're going to tell some amazing stories. We're going to learn a lot about God and what he wants to do. And we're going to encourage all y'all.
I love it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Well, thanks for sitting down with me and asking me all the hard therapeutic questions.
Of course.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And I hope y'all follow along. It'll be a great time. So I think I'll probably say this again in the outro, but it demands to be said. I said my intro. Now I have to say my outro. So until next time, get out there and hustle. Thanks so much for hanging out and listening to A Theology of Hustle. Make sure that you like and subscribe, all the things, and follow me at Theology of Hustle on Instagram. My hope is that this podcast just encourages you in your work, whatever that may be. So until next time, get out there and hustle.